I don't know what's logical, I'm just kind of,
Yeah, I think that's open for discussion. I think for the contract, we would say contractor mows X amount of square feet, and then we would be able to kind of, wherever the site conditions allow us to do that is how we would get that done. So I don't think we would stick to just this 35 feet off this property line. I think we would try to look at the square footage of what they're mowing. Quite honestly, I don't know as of today, what that would really look like. I know that there's some property owners historically that were mowing for a long time. And I think that's a good indication of what could actually happen. Maybe we need to go measure some of that and see what that looks like. But I do think I think it'd be very variable across the entire site.
Is there some delineation here between yours and ours?
Not on this map, no. But I mean, in the contract, again, just to be clear, the MSBU would only be responsible for mowing the park property.
my vision is that at some point in time, like people like wildlife, right? They'll be able to walk by these beautiful ponds and they'll see some birds and some people will get all happy and you'll be able to walk around the ponds, and that's what most people do with ponds. They walk around ponds. So the idea of having a walk path that's close to the houses on Florimar out there doesn't make as much sense as to me as we're closer to the ponds so people can see the nature and also get away from the homeowners.
Closer to the other ones.
Do you have the other map with the E-lamp?
It's an alley there.
The red, was the yellow border, was the red? Yeah.
You talking about the conceptual map that we had years back where?
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like it's this, that's it.
Okay.
So we wouldn't be going all the way around because the eastern property line is too close. And we would have to cut through the E-lamp for a circle to go all the way around.
Which is fine.
Okay.
We've said that all along. There's no issue.
Yeah, and that's what you were thinking, right, is to go around and cut through, leave the eastern part.
I literally was hoping that where the pond, the large pond is to the east, that we could have a crossover, so you could take a big loop around the four ponds, you could take a small loop around the east pond, or you could cut through and do an X.
What I can commit to do is I'll talk, so no one's here from that team, but I'll talk to the land management team from ULAN to get with them on their management plan design and see if they're thinking about allowing any pedestrian access in between those facilities, those ponds. I don't think that's, quite honestly, going to be a difficult thing to do. My philosophy on a lot of this is if you give someone a place to actually walk, that's better than them walking wherever. So, we'll work with that group and see what they have going. Because what I don't want to do is submit to something and they have restoration plans. And so now the timing is good because we can work on this together and maybe tie in whatever we're going to do in the future for the park, tie into the ELAN plan. So,
Yeah, these are the houses flooded. That one's flooded,
I
yeah.
don't know.
Yes.
I'll call the meeting. That's all.
So that would be an additional loan loan. So if we did the 35-foot perimeter for the residents and then a large circle, that would be an additional low cut.
Or you could, so like you mentioned earlier, the eastern portion wouldn't be mowed to 35 foot. You could just say, this is what we're gonna allot for the budget, and we'll work to NDL, this is how much we have for twice a year through mowing for a path. This is where we would like it, where can you work with us within that 5 acres, that'd be twice a month.
And Steve brought up, we talked about the wood or concrete elevated like decades from now. Was that along the far eastern side or down the middle or in between paths? I don't remember where we were.
I think we made assumptions that if you wanted a trail network on the far eastern side, you would have to boardwalk it. We have no, at this point, we have no designs or plans, you know, I mean, I think it's safe to assume that to cross that consistently in all seasons, you would have to boardwalk it. And quite honestly, probably some of the stuff in between the ponds, but, you know, I would, to Kavika's point, I would be more focused on the square footage allocation towards a future contract. I think NDL is gonna, I mean, that's how their contract is, so they're gonna go where, you know, if we say it's 6 acres for this type of mowing and this for brush hogging, they're gonna work with us within the, you know, the limitation of the property itself, so.
Yeah.
Don't get too hung up on, in my recommendation, don't get too hung up on this path thing, because really that's just a quick adjustment on the mower.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
if they say, oh, that's another X amount of dollars, I'll be like, I don't think so. If it's all within 5 acres, just cut it at different heights.
Yeah.
That's what I would tell the contractor.
Yeah. So, yeah, so the bigger circle in between the ponds would be the starting point.
And then also, where the parking lot is, it'd be good if we had a 20-foot path, low cut down to where our walking path starts, and then everything else push on, which you probably already thought about, but just make sure it's there.
We were thinking of actually sending everyone through Frank's property.
Perfect.
Fine.
Frank, you can have drinks for everybody as we go through.
6, the light is on.
We figured it would discourage most people, but based on your story.
Yeah, it's frightening. It really is. I have pictures.
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the proposal that Kuika has proposed for the mowing. It sounds logical to me.
A second.
Motion passed.
Aye, vote.
All in favor?
Aye,
Sorry.
aye. Okay,
How
There we go.
much?
So we will work with, so I'll work with you, Frank, I'll meet on site, schedule time with NDL, we'll look at the map, and we'll say, this is what we have proposed for this year.
Sure.
What can we do first, what would the path look like, where can we mow? And we're gonna, over time, what we're gonna figure is, there's gonna be areas where they can't mow, with too wet, and that path's gonna alter over time.
Okay.
So now we have to work with, budget to work with, and we'll develop the plan.
When you come, wear boots.
We'll figure it out.
I'll send an object with it.
At least hip waders, if not chest waders. No.
It'll be fine.
Are we gonna do anything long-term with the public access points? There's 4 public access points around. Some of them seem more resident encroached.
So I don't know if the 4 that are between homes are intended for public access because it's between homes. I think that was more along the lines of access for maintenance of the property at the time that Elan owned it. So when they acquired the property, it was for them to get in there and do the design treatments and restoration. So I believe the intent is to use the old clubhouse location as
Just saw those and thought it was pretty invasive, some areas.
and I'm sure the neighbors for the 2 homeowners would not be appreciative.
Yeah.
People walking down their driveway. And it is a driveway, so it is.
Yeah.
so based on our plan, what was the, was it 26?
Yeah,
26?
And I will email that to everyone, it was 26, so it's a little over. 26.4, but as we discussed earlier, we're gonna look at operationally internally in the department to get the site into a good
Right.
shape first.
Yep.
And then we can start working with
And then how many residents are within the MSBU?
That's what I was just talking about. So,
18.
I was gonna run up to 18, I was gonna say 1850, so quick math on 26,000, that's around $14 annually for the maintenance plan that you just discussed.
Unbelievable. That's cheap. You need to do some more things. I need some more money. I mean, for criminy sake.
Roll it forward for the shelf.
Now
Yeah,
there's
we
a
are. No question.
$10 assessment.
Yeah, and the there's still the capital assessment that you can't forget about, so.
Right.
Which is $67.
67 is for the payback of the loan. That's the debt service.
For the next 5 years.
Unbelievable. We got a deal. I should have bought the property, turned it into condos.
And I will email this to you all so you kind of see the breakdown as well as the NDL agreement. Now, the NDL agreement being extended for 1 year, so that's going to go back to purchasing, it's going to be rebid. So following the 20-year, in fiscal year 24, the costs are going to be higher.
Can we encumber a contract with them prior? Is that for this assessment?
So we can encumber our contract with them for this fiscal year 23, but their contract ends right before the fiscal year 24 starts.
Okay, so what that really means is that, yeah, there, to Kavika's point, there could be obviously a change in cost, which based on what we've seen will happen.
But this will be the price for this
Yeah,
year.
And it may not be NDL, so it may be a
Yeah, it
different,
may be a different load.
maybe a different.
Okay, so, that's the, I guess where that's annual assessment. Is there anything else in the annual assessment? Mr. Chairman, Chairperson, Chairwoman?
I have nothing else.
Okay. Pretty good for
A few
Number
updates.
4.
Yep, so we're at 4, a few updates for the committee. We submitted a board action item, and it was submitted to extend the current advisory committee to July 31st, 2023. And that item will appear on the board on November 15th. So this board is the term is set to expire November 30th. This submitted board item will extend the current committee to July 31st.
Okay.
With the original intent in place, no changes to the original intent. It's just, like we talked about last time, we just wanted to make sure we have enough time that you all can fulfill your obligations while we're here. So,
Perfect.
We have a new binder to read. We need until July to get that in.
Okay.
Any questions on?
No.
Another follow-up is the wells that are found on site. We might pull that up. So there are 3 permitted wells. 2 of them, the one on the far east and the one on the far west, they have been plugged. And the one on the top was permitted 864993. It was permitted for 8 separate wells. 5 were canceled and 3 were installed. And I have no record, and I'll say unable to find any record that they were plugged. They could have been plugged, they just weren't reported as plugged. But they're not of any danger to the public. We're monitoring wells 2 inches in diameter. There's a casing 2 inches in diameter. So at the time when we start doing construction on the property, we'll take a look at it and see if we can find it. If any details, we'll work with that.
So the enclosed, under the lighthouse, those areas where the DEP had the wells, we had to fence that area off because the area recontaminated from seepage. So in our plans, we might want to consider giving those areas a wide berth in case we have to fence them in and prevent public access to those areas. That's just.
The wells we're speaking of are freshwater wells, correct?
Are these the monitoring?
Click on it. Well, I'm not sure if that'll work. That one.
Are these the DEP monitoring sites?
I think so. I wasn't able to find too much information on why they were installed, but I'm assuming that's why. They were
Yeah.
2000, I think, 17.
Yes.
Okay.
So we've got them.
They're monitoring.
And
So I don't
Okay.
think that concern should apply to these systems, but.
They're not very deep. They're not consumptive.
It's probably the arsenic for the golf course, because they typically used arsenic. And, you know, you typically don't have to worry about it unless you have housing on the site with young kids in there. And even developers who redevelop golf courses, you just take the top 8 to 12 inches off and you berm it up. So I'm not worried about people walking on arsenic that's in the ground. They're not going to be eating it.
So out in Anklo State Park, the Coast Guard removed 16 inches to get the lead and mercury out. And
Because of the batteries?
because of the batteries.
Yeah.
That was in 1995 that they removed the 16 inches. And by 2012, the lead mercury had reached the 2 part per million where we had to fence it off. So as long as the points are still there and accessible, they're going to check them unless they're capped.
So we can also cross-reference the phase 1 and phase 2 to see specifically of this site assessment for, contamination, just to see what they say about these. Honestly, it's been a long time since I've looked at those reports, but maybe the team can review those. I can make sure you have access, and we can come back with whatever we learned from that, because I'm pretty sure they were most likely identified through that assessment process, and solutions were proposed at the time.
I might have to zigzag our pedestrian path. We'll keep that in mind.